So I'm Johnny Byrne. I'm about 6'4". Can identify that I have a graying beard right now, closer to gray than brown. And thrilled to be here. I live, work, and play on the Anishinaabe Algonquin territory, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today. I've got background in sport, been sport administrator for 25 years now, had the privilege to work the local level, provincial level, national level, international level. So I've sat around a kitchen table in Marystown, Burin Peninsula, Newfoundland, sat around board tables in Toronto. So I've sort of seen it all. I think the fascinating thing about that to me is that there's one consistent piece, is that you always hear people say, oh, our town is different. Always. That's the one consistent. And the one thing that's always consistent is people are the same in their drive to want to help people. And whether that is a swim program, whether that is a para hockey program, whether that is a Special Olympics program, at the core, people are driven by that need to help. And I think that's that great unifier. The thing that is different, though, is the municipality in the area where you come from. Could be size, could be the structure of the municipality, could be your infrastructure, could be expertise you have available to you, could be the ease or unease to acquire transportation. And that brings with it understanding that we can't have a one-size-fits-all solution to figuring out how do we help develop our community. One of the great discoveries throughout in working with the Ontario Parasport Collective is seeing different communities try it in different ways. And just that ability to look at that and say, it's not that one's right and that one's wrong. Sorry, that one's right for that community and that one's right for that community. But being able to share those stories, share the approaches is something that's important, because that's something we can learn from each of them. So we have 3 different perspectives that we're going to hear from today. We've had one quick change to our agenda that was originally published, but once again, it gives us a different perspective that we're excited to hear about. So we've got Parasport Ontario that's going to present on the work they've done in the Niagara region. We have Taryn from Lakehead that's going to present on some of the work that Archie had referenced that we're looking to do in Lakehead. And thrilled to have Andrea Carey here from One Ability in Victoria, and talking about the work that they're doing in their community there. And I think the cool thing, again, once again, the people at the core are the same in their drive. Each community is a little different in how they approach things, but we're thrilled to have their perspectives, and I'll turn it over to James.
Is this hard?
He can. Yeah, do you want?
I'll just use this. What's the forward one? Green. All right, I'll do my intro first. Hi, everyone. Perfect. So my name's James Murphy. You'll notice that Johnny and I coordinated perfectly with our gray sweaters, unintentionally. We're on the same wavelength in the mornings. So I am the executive director of Parasport Ontario. As Johnny mentioned, today we're going to be speaking to the work that we've done in the Niagara region over the last 3 years. There's a lot of information that I'm going to, talk about. And really, this is to provide learnings of the spectrum of all that we've done, but with that understanding that we had a Trillium Foundation Grow Grant to support the work. So with everything that we're showing, it's really to show what we've done, hopefully give some ideas of collaboration, who to talk to in the communities if you're looking to build new or increase Parasport programming. So really, it's hopeful to do that. Or if you're looking for support, information, questions that you can find or connect with us after to ask more questions. As really the core of what Parasport Ontario does is really to try to develop, promote grassroots. And as you'll learn today in Niagara, what we've learned in Niagara, looking to replicate that if ever needed in other regions across Ontario. So for Parasport Ontario, this is a bit about what we do. We want to provide leadership, resources, and support to connect the disability community in adaptive sport and provide healthy living opportunities across Ontario. We want to connect participants and athletes with programs, clubs, ambassadors, sport leaders, and adaptive equipment, whatever they need to get or be more active. One example of this in that sort of connector education, allowing people to make informed decisions, is really letting people know what is out there. So what opportunities are there for them to participate in? So this is a bit of an infographic we created. This is one of the projects that the Ontario Parasport Collective did support with, among others, OTF. We had some corporate support as well. And this was really to try to amalgamate as much information as we could find, obviously ever-changing information, for people to go to for that online first point of contact to learn what opportunities are there. If they have questions, to connect with an ambassador or a sport leader and get a response from a person with those answers, or connect with them and really just have a good conversation and really take away that sort of, that first step of who do I contact? Do they have opportunities? Some people, aren't that forceful in that advocating for themselves. So we want to be that support to be like, yes, connect with this organization. And really it's that hub to come to, but then help them branch off into that other organization that can help support them in their region. So they're not traveling hours to go to a program when there might be something closer to them. So really this is what we're constantly changing and trying to adapt over time to make sure it is the most kind of up-to-date information for them. We have our Parasport Ontario magazine. You'll see a couple of them on the table in the back. Really, this is something that we're trying to use as that voice for the parasport community to put stories in. Jeff Thiessen is the publisher of this magazine, and I'm a bit biased, but I think it is a very, very good sort of informative magazine with great stories, information for people to sort of read about and learn. And really, we want this to be that vehicle or showcase for any parasport organization or able-bodied organization to really showcase their work and development in the parasport adaptive physical education community. We do try-it events, which I'll speak to today. We try to build regional programming as best as possible. And then we also have our Play to Podium Fund, which is actually open this month for people to apply for to receive adaptive equipment donated to them if they're successful in their application. So to dive into the work that we did in the Niagara region, so this was supported by the Ontario Trillium Foundation GROW grant stream. Throughout everything that I'll speak to today, if I forget, this was also supported by many other organizations, whether donor support, sponsored support programs, Jumpstart, other organizations did help with specific initiatives. So really, as much as this bigger grant helped overall to create that sort of 3-year plan, a lot of the work and projects was about that integration and connecting with other people in those communities where they cared about those specific things to make sure there was all of that support as well. So you can see the purpose there. And then we always had that sort of legacy objective in our minds on how can this continue past this grant work and not just be that one and done scenario. How do we ingrain inclusive attitudes and inclusive mindset for people to keep with them well beyond the work in this grant? And you can see those core operating principles: connectivity, continuity, and community. So in terms of our program design and evaluation, so we designed everything to be inclusive and recreational. So really, again, that grassroots starting point, diverse, accessible, experiential, educational, and respectful, and then led by qualified experts for quality and sensitivity. So people working for Parasport Ontario having that sort of diverse, inclusive mindset, and including people with disabilities on any working groups and panels, our ambassadors, and making sure that there's that lived experience there and decisions that we're making. How do we evaluate this impact? So looking at sustainability, our connectivity with Niagara-based organizations, community engagement in activities and funding, so the support that we're receiving, looking at participant feedback and impact statements, which I'll share some today, and then community immersion. So as you get started, we're trying to get into everything, have all those meetings, and then by the end of this 3-year grant, we're getting requests from people to come to their events, Canada Day events, Family Day events. They're reaching out to us to come, bring our ambassadors, bring our adaptive equipment, and showcase all of those different parasport opportunities in the region. So we're not seeking them out. They're now seeking us out because they see the value in showcasing those at those events. As Darda said, there are people with disabilities at all events. So showcasing and having that person with a disability coming up and learning in that moment is a great opportunity for conversation. So I mentioned our core operating principles, so continuity. So how do we maintain a regional presence after this work plan? So 3 years of work is great. How do we maintain a presence in the Niagara region to ensure that they're including adaptive or having that inclusive mindset in everything that they're building moving forward? Community, so continue to participate in those community events and schedules. So not just to go in there and leave, but there's still festivals and programs that they're doing that we're being a part of, even though this grant and the funding has ended over the summer. And then connectivity, so learning and achievements in the Niagara region can serve as a scalable model of inclusion for other regions in Ontario. So everything that we've done there, we want to kind of utilize or have that packages and frameworks to really individualize and customize to other regions in Ontario that might need that help and support to get going and building new adaptive programming or increasing the quality of the adaptive programming that they already have. So how do we create the sustainable change is that sort of word that we use throughout the grant. So community supportive and immersive, so utilizing existing programs, celebrating those existing programs, and trying to promote them as best as possible. And you'll see some examples of that as we move forward. The leadership include people with lived experiences, as I mentioned, and really looking at that continuity post-grant. And you'll see an example there with our Niagara Sledge Hockey League, which is right now going into its 3rd season, under the support from different community sponsors and donors, and Parasport Ontario providing that oversight and staff oversight for their games that continue weekly. And through education, practical tools and learnings, we want to provide the leaders in that community the confidence to operationalize diversity and inclusion mandates. So it's not always us having to be at the table. They have that confidence, they're informed, and they know what needs to be done to make their programs more inclusive and accessible. So just to showcase some examples, again, to give potentially ideas of what we've done, different adaptive golf workshops. There's one there we did in Pelham, 32 participants. Another Paragolf clinic, there was 94 participants at that clinic. We sort of integrated into a summer camp, and we're able to showcase to 470 participants about roller sledge hockey, wheelchair basketball, sitting volleyball, and really educate them about disability, fostering awareness, but using sort of parasports as that vehicle, providing that experience for them that'll have that more lasting memory when they get into a sport wheelchair and really see how it works. And in a good way, there's those mixed ability sports where they can potentially participate in that sport moving forward in those sports that allow them to do that. I mentioned our Niagara Sledge Hockey League, so going into our 3rd season now. And really why we sort of created this program is to be that entry level first point or first experience for someone to really try out sledge hockey, to know where to go. Maybe they didn't have the equipment to try it out. So with this grant, it allowed us to infuse the equipment into the community to say, come try it out. We have the helmet, we got the gloves, we got the sticks, the sledge, just come try it, see how it is. And then again, to have that sort of staff involved support to make sure that we're providing a quality parasport experience for them. So it's not just there, say, good luck, go try it. It's someone there to provide that structure, that education, teaching, making sure, you know, if there's enough people that they can have that game experience. And it really was needed to have that sort of oversight. There were times where we weren't there for scheduling 1 or 2 times. And there really was that feedback that us being there really did help to provide that quality experience for them, for people who were, you know, traveling a bit, taking different transportation to get there. It made that experience a lot more valuable. Sorry, it's cut off there with the dimensions, but you can see some of the quotes there from participants. So I'm not certain you understand what the Niagara Sledge Hockey League means to me. Your league has changed my life in many ways I never expected. You gave me back both the sport I love and the position I love to play. So we really saw that lasting and true impact, and now going into the 3rd season, the need in that community for that more recreational sledge hockey experience. There are other programs in Niagara with the Brock Niagara Penguins, which is great. And really, there's people that have grown, learned those skills, and moved up to those other opportunities, which we want and to connect. And it could go both ways. But there's some people who just want to stay at that recreational level and have fun and have that sense of community. And that's great as well. We integrated with schools there, obviously Brock University, and at the bottom there with Niagara College students, and really wanting to teach them with our experts about accessibility and inclusion in sport, recreation, and physical activity for people of all ages and abilities. You know, they got sort of a certification with it, which I'm sure students would love to put on their resume, but really it provided that true immersive experience to not only provide education about inclusion and accessibility, but again, got them into the that sport wheelchair, that roller sledge, to try it out firsthand and experience it, have that lasting impact and understanding that they can take on into their careers when they graduate. Again, that's that legacy, that's that lasting impact to really make sure we're engaging with all stakeholders, especially students who are, primed for learning, and making sure that we're setting them up for success and having that inclusion mindset. Due to the pandemic, and it's been talked about a lot, we had to shift some of the activities that we had planned to do in the grant. So instead of an in-person festival, which wouldn't have been allowed at the time, we changed to an online, sort of what we call the Million Minutes Activity Challenge. And this was to try to promote physical activity in that more virtual setting, which is harder. But we did have 246 participants. You can see that around 432,000 activity minutes that were logged through this challenge to really try to promote physical activity, adapted physical activity in this sort of online setting. And we gave out videos and suggestions on how to do that. And again, in the pandemic, or the heart of the pandemic, this was something that really people bought into. There was mayors supporting it, putting out statements and supporting, people in the Niagara region to really get in and do this. So it really was a good adapted way to do this during the pandemic, to keep that air and education about adapted physical activity. Again, a bit of scheduling changes from the pandemic allowed us to be part of the Canada Summer Games and their festival, or their 15-day festival they had called Niagara Place. This work was also supported by the Ontario Parasport Collective, and this allowed us to partner with different parasports that we either showcased or partnering with that local parasport organization to showcase all that they do for the Niagara region. You can see there was 8,000 people that engaged with this activation, and you can see the picture there. So every day for 15 days was a different parasport that was showcased. Allowed people to try it out, allowed people to come and talk, whether they were able-bodied people or people with disabilities. As you know, this games, there was that integration of parasports as well as able-bodied sports that were competing in the games. So it was really great to see those parasport athletes kind of come and see our booth, and they could kind of showcase, this is everything that is existing in the parasport world. So it was a really great experience. I think it was a great, it was a lot of work, 15 days in a row for us in staffing and bringing in new partners in that organization. But we got a lot of good feedback from people in terms of the experience that they had there and everything that they pulled from it. One of the sitting volleyball players loves, again, that experience to talk to people and showcase their sport. And then Archie here today, they brought Volt hockey and all that comes with bringing out those Volt chairs, but people loved, again, playing with it. And again, Niagara Children's Center is trying to expand their programming. So it was a great opportunity for them to showcase what they do. And then concurrently, there was also a 13 for 13 festival, is what it was called, in different regions, in all the different regions across Niagara, where we also had a booth bringing adaptive equipment. And again, having those conversations with people about parasports and all that there is to offer in the Niagara region. And then finally, just this past May, which was sort of that final hurrah of the grant, was our Niagara Parasport Festival. And some of you may have heard it, or a lot of people here may have been there in person. And really, this was that final culmination of bringing people together from community, municipalities, schools to come in and not only learn about parasports. There were sort of even those more formal settings to learn about accessibility, inclusion, how to talk to someone with a disability. So really, even just those common principles of, I don't even know what to say or what not to say, and just have those open and honest conversations to move past that barrier. And then you can think about that inclusionary mindset to be ingrained with them for years to come. And really great feedback of people seeing and understanding the opportunities. They had no idea were there the entire time in the Niagara region. This is an example of one of the flyers that was there. You can see Tracy up there, who's in the crowd today, looking great. And so the lineup, you can see different sport demonstrations. There were keynotes, educational workshops. We had sponsors specifically for this event to help subsidize, so it wasn't fully funded by Trillium. So, but you can see if you're bringing those groups together, then there is going to be potentially that support to put on these events in your local community. And it's about connecting with them, ingraining with them, and educating them as to why it's important. And then again, some more feedback here. One of the recreation coordinators. This is them sort of reaching out to us to want us to be at their events, as opposed to when we first started, it was always us knocking on their door. So it was nice to see it come back the other way and them seeing the value in us being there. And it's been a great learning for everyone. Some of the final impact statements that we sort of saw and collected from people at in-person events, the virtual events. It really, was a testament in terms of what we did and the feedback that we saw. People being more aware of what was offered. Again, some things maybe we started new, but some things that had been there for many years and they just had no idea that it existed already. And whether it was different programs that we started or the Niagara Sledge Hockey League, you could really see that impact, whether it was that integration. So the Niagara Sledge Hockey League, there was other family members, siblings that also came out and play, so more of that mixed ability sport. And so again, for parents to come, bring both kids, have them play together, that integration there, and that helps to bring the numbers up. So there is definitely those positive side of things that you can bring the numbers up, you can have a game, again, you can create that better quality sport experience. If that person then does move up to be more competitive, then that's when it'll be all people with disabilities when you kind of move up the ranks. But at that recreational level, to have friends, family members playing with you, that really does provide, a positive experience for them. So there are the benefits there in terms of that integration of able-bodied and people with disabilities. Some improvements, and the one there is that advertise more. And that's something that we're always kind of thinking about and talking about is, how do we reach more people with disabilities to know that these programs do exist? And Darda mentioned it too, it always seems to be word of mouth. It always seems to be someone saying, oh, this program's great, you should come out and try it, versus all of the efforts that we all do in this room is to promote and advertise. And it still seems to miss that good percentage of people with disabilities. So that's sort of that magic question is, how do we reach those people? What avenue, what medium is it that's going to reach them to see it on paper, to be like, you know what, this is going to be an inclusive and welcoming environment. I can go out and try that. As there are lots of different barriers to that first kind of point of participation. So how do we sort of break those down? How do we get past that? And how do we reach all of those people with disabilities to have them come out and realize how great it is and how great it is for their, quality sport participation. So thank you very much for your time and everything that we went over today. Hopefully it sort of stimulated new thoughts or ideas in terms of what everyone's doing in your communities. And again, we can talk, I'm sure we'll have time for questions after this, or if not, find me around today or tomorrow. But again, thank you for coming and thank you for listening.
Thanks very much, James. So now there's the community development in Thunderbay, Ontario, and we're not going to get much past your first slide in your presentation, James. We're much more in the infancy stages of development, but every community needs to start somewhere. So that's what I'll be talking about today. So Thunderbay is located 16 hours north of where we are today. We have a population of 110,000 people, but that does not mean that the demand is there. Because of a lower population, we have less people with disabilities, but still a need and a reason to set up adapted and parasports in our area. My name is Taryn Klarner. I'm an assistant professor at Lakehead University, but I work very closely with organizations that promote adapted sports and also with our municipality in Thunderbay. I am a white settler. All of my grandparents immigrated to Canada after World War II. I'm 5'6". I have brown hair. I'm wearing a black sweater today. I'm very happy to live on the traditional territory of Fort William First Nation and other First Nations and Métis people in our area. So in Thunder Bay, in our region of Ontario, and I'm so glad to be included today because often Ontario stops at Sault Ste. Marie. We often never look more north than that. But there's a wide region above Sault Ste. Marie. Thunder Bay is a small community. We're sort of an isolated island, not geographically, but physically. But we're a big hub for First Nations communities that live even further north than us. So there's a lot of demand, as I said, to promote inclusive activity. So it's a big collaboration. We have no centralized organization in Thunder Bay that runs adapted sports. So it is the work of many people. Our municipality has taken on this work primarily, and on the screen here I have their symbol for the city of Thunder Bay, the city with the giant heart, and their subsidiary organizations that promote sport for people with disabilities, adults with disabilities, and people who face other barriers to just engaging in physical activity at all. There's also several nonprofit organizations in Thunder Bay. And these are small organizations that are mostly run by volunteers. So it's a lot of work to get everything going. I represent Lakehead University. And also we have partners from Confederation College. There's literally a finite number of buildings in Thunder Bay, so everyone has to work together. This is where we have our big gym spaces. So these are the spaces and places where these activities happen. And recently, we've been very happy to get some feedback and insight and advice from those at the Ontario Parasport Collective and also Variety Village. Just a couple months ago, we welcomed Jess and Johnny and Archie from OPC and from Variety Village to help give insight and information on how other communities and municipalities run their sports and how that could be leveraged to our area of Thunder Bay. And on screen now is a photo of all the people. And I like to use this because, you know, you can have policies and mandates and procedures all about adaptive and inclusive sport. But at the end of the day, it's the people who run the show. It's the people who work really hard, who give their blood, sweat, and tears to these types of things. So I just use this image to give a shout out to all my people back home, and maybe they're watching online. So hey, everybody in Thunder Bay, we got our first snowstorm last night, so I'm sure they're busy digging out. One person symbol I didn't put on, this is Parker Perro. Parker is an Indigenous person. He's a representative with Indigenous Sport and Wellness Ontario. So his region includes Thunder Bay. And I've just recently reconnected with Parker, and he let me know that there are no Indigenous sports that have an adaptive component, but that doesn't mean that there's a need for that. So we are working to invent brand new sports that don't exist before, where we can use traditional Indigenous ways of knowing or physical activity and then involve an adapted aspect to that as well. So yeah, we're starting at the very beginning in Thunder Bay. As I said, James's organization is a little more advanced. This is just a model of barriers to inclusivity, which is based on the ICF, the International Classification of Functioning model. And it just identifies a couple barriers. So we are starting at the beginning to address things like barriers in knowledge, barriers in information on programs, barriers in what activities are even available for my 6-year-old son who has a transtibial amputation and we don't know where to, you know, get him involved. And yeah, you don't know what you don't know. And so if the people spreading those word of mouth messages don't know what's available, then the information stops right there. So that's where we've begun in Thunder Bay, just assembling all the information together. I took a photo of your infographic on slide 1, and that's something I think we should create at home as well. So over a year ago, we had an event, an Adapted Sports Expo event, where we invited in all of the organizations from the community who work in the adapted sport area. This event was a win/fail. All of the organizers got to meet each other. We had also invited the public to this event, but not many public people came, especially those who had visibly recognizable disabilities. So we're working on getting the message out there in a bit of a different way. You have to think, you know, Like, was it because the event was on Monday night in the first week of school and it was 6 o'clock and, you know, the moms just couldn't fathom bringing their kids or getting them all together to come to this event? So sometimes it's the littlest things you don't even think about that are barriers to accessibility or to inclusivity. So yeah, this event was good because we all got to meet each other in the parasport world, but it didn't really get our message out there. So trying something different, a couple of weeks ago, we had another event. This event was called Inspire. This event was for girls in grade 9 with and without disabilities. This is a provincial organization, Inspire, that has found that, especially in grade 9, girls will start to drop off of physical activity. So this event was all about we brought all 500 grade 9 girls in Thunder Bay into our facility, and we had different sports that they could try. One of the sports was sitting volleyball. I had purchased some sitting volleyball equipment. So we had a try it demonstration set up. So we had the court set up. We had some players sitting and playing volleyball. And God bless those grade 9 girls and their complete lack of filter, but they're like, what's wrong with you? Why are you guys on the floor? Are your legs broken? Like, what's happening? So comments like that really tell me that there's still a lot of work to do in the education around adaptive sports. You know, we like to joke that, well, I like to joke that Thunder Bay is 20 years behind the times. We just got 10-digit calling this summer. We're going to start composting by 2026. So we're getting there. We're getting there. But yeah, I really like the power that adaptive sports is as a metaphor for learning inclusivity. So that was the whole point of bringing adapted sports here. And even their teachers were like, what is adapted sport? What is this? Why are you sitting on the floor? So there's still lots of work to do. And I really like what Darda was saying about bringing it to the schools. And that's where learning happens most traditionally. So yeah, I think bringing more try it events or just more information will really get the word out there. And just to prove the point that people with disabilities are human, it's just another way of living, and it's not something you need to be afraid about or, you know, not have information on. So the work that we started with Jessica and with Archie and Johnny is just to simply get the information together. And this was no prettier than a Google spreadsheet. So we created a Google spreadsheet, canvassed people in our city of Thunder Bay, and just tried to assemble and collate names and contacts and websites and organizations that work in the world of adaptive sport. I just think I'm a mother, you know, if my child had a disability, I wouldn't know where to turn first. I would go to the internet to find information, but if that information's not there, it's a major barrier. We just spent $5,000 on a new wheelchair to help people get from the beach to the water. But if nobody knows we have the wheelchair, then she just sits and collects dust and rust. And what's the point in that? So we have our spreadsheet collated. These are just a couple of the symbols of organizations that are represented in the spreadsheet. Not exhaustive at all. There are tons of other symbols that I could add on here as well. And our work now is to post that information to our municipality's website. So the parent who doesn't know what to do with their child, they can find information about the Pell card, for example, which is to give financial support for assistance to help people with disabilities get into the spaces and places. And now we're adding on a link that's just a list. It's just a direct link to that Google spreadsheet. And the advantage of using the Google spreadsheet is that it is live all the time. Organizations that close down or start up, they're represented in that spreadsheet. So it's something that you don't have to constantly work to update. So now we're working on making a link, you know, what are the programs that are available for people of many abilities? And as I said, you don't know what you don't know. So this is the point of getting our information out there. Another fact about Thunder Bay is that we love hockey. We have the most number of outdoor rinks. We have 31 outdoor rinks in a city of 100,000. So that's a lot of outdoor rinks, a lot of water. We have a big lake beside us, so that works out well. As a result, you know, we need to play on our strengths of our community. And that's a message I would give to any community. don't try to invent programs that your people aren't going to want to do. Play on what's already potentially available or interesting for folks in community. So we had a singular, James had plural try-it sessions. We had a singular try-it session. This was for sledge hockey. We got some sledge skates through a grant a couple years ago. And for a long time, to be honest, they just sat in storage, again, collecting dust and rust. So, what's the point of having the equipment if A, nobody knows about it, and then B, nobody uses it? So we had sledge hockey. Unlike James with the 94 participants, a photo full of tons of people, we didn't have a great turnout to sledge hockey. Again, was it because it was Friday night, at the end of a long week? Are these the things that are preventing people from participating? We're not sure. But nonetheless, I participated and tried sledge hockey. And now what we're doing, instead of asking the people to come to us, we are going to them. So Hockey Northwestern Ontario is a competitive hockey organization. It's a really small town in Thunderbay. One of my students who's graduated now is the technical director of this organization. So sometimes that's how it works too, just word of mouth, just personal connections. And we are going to bring sledge hockey to all of their children's teams, all of their developmental teams, and then crucially to all of the coaches in the organization. And it's not so much about for athletes with disabilities, but I love, like I said, the metaphor that adapted sport is for just learning inclusivity. So if the coaches get to try sledge hockey, realize, oh, it's very similar to regular hockey, then they can take that message to their athletes and to other people in their network. And most recently, we've been working with Variety Village, and Archie and I have to thank him for giving that kind shout out earlier in his presentation. But yeah, we've been gifted an opportunity to bring Volt hockey into Thunder Bay. To me, this is an obvious win. We love hockey in Thunder Bay, so why wouldn't we want it? But we're very conscious of the fact that we don't want these Volt hockey chairs just sitting in storage in some storage locker somewhere. We want to design a program right off the bat where we can use this equipment and use it meaningfully in community right away. That's been a bit of a barrier, to be honest. Space is at a premium up in Thunder Bay. As I said, we have a finite number of buildings. So we're trying to figure out a place to house the sledges. That was also very grassroots done. I just picked up the phones. I called principals at different schools. Do you have space for us? Are you interested in this program? Called the municipality, asked them about their interest as well. And I think where we've landed right now is a high school in town, Dennis Franklin Cromarty High School. It's a high school for Indigenous members who come from northern communities, who go to that high school, who live with host families. They're really keen on having these Volt hockey chairs. So yeah, we want to bring the program to people who are really interested in using it. So that's probably where the chairs will land at this time. In February, we are also host to the Ontario Winter Games. There is a Ontario Para Winter Games, but for these Winter Games, just like I heard James say, for the Summer Games, there are going to be adapted sports that are hosted alongside the event, during the event. And to me, this is a model of inclusion, of true inclusion, where these sports are promoted, played, practiced, viewed by spectators to increase that social contact to disability right at the event, right during the event. So I love this model. I hope it's what continues to happen in the future, where adapted sports are part of regular able-bodied sport programming. So yeah, we have lots of volunteers signed up for this. The city's really excited. And it's just, to me, it's all about exposure and just increased learning, just for the non-othered people to realize that everyone's a human, everyone's the same. So looking forward, my vision for our collaborative community development in Thunder Bay, it's wonderful that our municipality has taken on this work. I would love to see a centralized organization that it's not just volunteers. It's not just done off the corner of the desk of people's already jam-packed busy schedules. I would love to see it prioritized alongside competitive hockey leagues or competitive skiing leagues. I am a teacher and I teach my students, if you have missed a step of accessibility, you've done it wrong. You haven't missed a step, you've actually done it wrong in the first place. So I would like to see our community take this on to the Niagara level, where there are a lot of triad opportunities and a lot of integrated sports programs for accessibility that are available to everyone. So that's where we're at with Thunderbay. If anyone hasn't visited, yeah, I definitely recommend that you do. Maybe not in the next couple months, it's a little cold. But yeah, as I said, I'm very happy to be included in this. And I think that all communities globally should have adapted sports. And it doesn't matter your size. There is a need and there are champions everywhere. So thank you very much. At this time, I would like to introduce Andrea.
Thanks, Taryn. Oh, wow. Okay. Super excited to be here today. My name's Andrea Carey. I use the pronouns she, her, hers, and elle, and I live as an uninvited settler on Coast Salish territory in Victoria. And for visual description, I'm about 5'8", medium build, blonde hair, green eyes, and I'm wearing a red sweater and a white blouse and black pants today. Very excited to join you. And thanks for the last minute call in. We've been doing this work at One Ability for about almost 9 years. And so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our story. Those of you that know me know that I wear a couple hats. I run a diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting firm called Inclusion Incorporated. And then I was a co-founder of One Ability, and I'm their part-time executive director. So this is our story. So One Ability is a network of about 50 organizations that are working together really around the space of adapted sport and physical activity. Started in the Victoria region, we have members from across Vancouver Island, across the province of BC, and thanks to some of our friends in the room today, we have some national members as well. So really, we came together to think about how we could be more intentional about getting to know each other, appreciating the work and the assets that each of us were bringing to the disability sport and physical activity community, and thinking about how we've really built on that to build connections, collaboration, partnership, advocacy, promotion, education, and knowledge sharing. Started in 2015, I was working on a project with the University of Victoria who was building a new sport and physical activity complex. And they were going to have a partner in that facility that did assistive technologies for people with disabilities. And so they very intentionally wanted to ensure that they had disability programming within this new sport and physical activity complex. And as I reached out to my network, which I was super grateful, love having networks, to invite them to come and talk about what could be offered at UVic, I really started to recognize that, well, I knew a lot of them, they actually didn't know each other. And so there was this gap in our community where we were trying to all serve very similar populations, do similar work, facing similar barriers and challenges. And they didn't know about each other. They didn't know how to connect with each other. They didn't understand that other people were having those same challenges and struggles. And so we just started inviting people to a table. Initially, we had about 8 members, partners that showed up to the meetings. And very quickly, that actually expanded to about 40 people. And so then suddenly we needed a bit of a structure to manage this group that was growing and had, well, a similar shared vision of what they wanted to do, was really trying to understand sort of how they fit or how they could contribute. And so we started to look at what a governance model could be. And we were really thoughtful about recognizing that trust was a piece we needed to work on, and that we didn't want to create another entity, given that there was already all these entities doing good work in our community. So we actually leaned on a collective impact approach, and I would call it kind of collective impact light. We didn't ascribe to all of the areas of collective impact approach, but for those of you that are familiar with collective impact, we really rallied around that shared vision and looked at sort of how we could support each other and engage in this work through that approach. So we actually operated like that until about 2 years ago, when we essentially outgrew the collective impact model. One of the challenges for those of you that have worked in collective impact is you need a backbone organization in order to receive funding and to provide some of those core administrative supports. And the legality of that and the way our charitable sector is set up makes it a little bit challenging to do that on a long-term basis. So we actually, unfortunately, an organization that had been one of our founding members was closing their doors because they'd lost funding, but they very generously essentially gifted us their charitable number, and we went through all the hoops and took over that charity and then reestablished ourselves as One Ability Foundation in 2021. So in 2021, we also did our strategic plan, which was the first time we'd ever had a strategic plan because we'd been a collective. And so we went through a process with our members while we were all online, not being able to see each other. And we were really unsure what the world was going to bring next, but we knew that this work was more important than ever, given that, as others have referenced today, people with disabilities were disproportionately impacted by the pandemic in terms of sport and physical activity opportunities and continue to be. So we came up with 4 pillars. I appreciate this is a little small on the slide, but just to give you a little bit of a understanding, our first pillar was to deepen our members' connections and capacity for pursuing their own mandates. So one of our core roles is really, how do we make their lives easier? One Ability wants to provide services and support so that our members can do the work they do well of providing programming for people with disabilities in our community. Second pillar was to enhance relationships and structures for joint promotions, education, and advocacy. So how can we, again, do that work and help get their programming offerings out there, help to support them on training and advocacy, and be out there in the community on their behalf, promoting them. Third pillar was growing the network. So as I mentioned, COVID was a gift in terms of we've gotten to connect with many of new members from across the country. We have seen other collectives or community hubs start to pop up. Great to meet Taryn today and recognize sort of that work and where that's going. We work very closely with Calgary. My colleague, Emily Glossop from Ottawa, who couldn't be here today, thinking about sort of how do we learn from each other as well. And every one of these community hubs is going to be very different in your own evolution, but the opportunity to think about what are those commonalities, what challenges are we facing, how do we support each other through that? And then the fourth one was develop internal resources and structures needed for an effective and sustainable network. And that's really where that charitable status piece has played a huge role over the last couple of years. It's given us opportunities to start to pursue some other funding opportunities to really kind of stabilize how we work to support our members. So last year was a really big year for us. We completed that charitable status process. We started delivering multi-sport programs, and by delivering, I mean we coordinated multi-sport programs. So what we did is we knew that we weren't in the program delivery business, but our members are, and trying to spark some innovation coming out of COVID, we actually brought a number of our members together to cooperate to offer some new program delivery options that are multi-sport based to get kids back into sport participation. We also supported 4 local events, and we developed a shared service model for our members that includes things like bookkeeping and marketing services and training opportunities, governance training and resources. So thinking about where are some of those gaps that they're struggling with and how can we support that? And we've really been able to do that because we have some really great funders. So the Victoria Foundation has been a core funder of ours since very close to the beginning. And they continue to fund us year over year for that collaborative model. And that's been an incredible gift. I know you have a similar relationship with Trillium. The thing I think that's different about our story is we actually started with no funding. We had some really great successes on the program front at the beginning with programs like sledge hockey and adaptive climbing, where as partners came together, they were successful because they were coming together, because we could show that power of partnership. And that's been an impetus for us to make sure we continue that and continue to connect people as we go forward. And then Jumpstart's been a funder of our multi-sport program over the last year and a half, so we're very grateful. In our impact report from last year, our members served over 39,000 people. 39,000 people from our little hub of 40 plus members. So we're extremely proud of that. We'd seen similar numbers pre-COVID, dropped significantly during COVID, and then last year just came back up, and we're just about to deploy our annual survey, so we'll see where we land for this year shortly. Our members serve a wide range of disabilities: intellectual, physical, visual, hard of hearing, learning, developmental, autism spectrum, and mental health and invisible disabilities, many of them serving multiple disability groups. And we're incredibly proud of the type of work they do, how they do the work, and how generous they are in connecting and sharing with our community. Some of the services that are offered by our members: training and education, support services, sports and recreation, obviously a pretty big one, physical activity and training, camps and group-based activities, and health services. Some of the benefits that our members have identified as being part of OneAbility: new networks and partnerships, access to new funders and funding, increased access to information about the field and the community, access to training, and development of new programs. Some of the events that we sponsor and support through the funding that we get from the Victoria Foundation, we share that forward, pay it forward to our members. We sponsor the Pisces Sport and Family Festival every year, which brings about 1,000 people out from the community. And we do an adapted sport station, which, I kid you not, I probably put about 400 kids in chairs at that event every year. It's like, brings me the most joy. So we have roller sledge, we have bocce, and we have a range of sizes of sport chairs. And kids just come and play, adults are playing, everyone's laughing, we're having an amazing time. And to me, that reverse integration piece is so crucial to sharing the message of Parasport and just adapted sport and how we connect and support each other. There's an incredible organization in Victoria called Power to Be. I happen to also be on the board of them, but they're an outdoor recreation entity supporting adapted and supportive outdoor recreation opportunities, from camping to climbing to water sports. And we support Have a Go Days that brings the community out to try those different sports. And then One Day is an event organized in the community that's primarily for people with intellectual disabilities in our community. We usually also see about 1,000 people with intellectual disabilities for that event. And we come and support a range of our members to show up and do different sport and physical activity booths. So this year we had about 8 members doing different activities. Our annual education day. This is your invitation. Tracy was our keynote a couple of years ago. Many of you in the room have been involved in it in different ways as speakers. It's on November 24th. We have flyers at the back. There's a QR code up here if you want. It goes from 9 to noon Pacific, so a little bit later for you here on the Eastern time zone. But we're going to profile some of the training opportunities that are available for you and for your team and your partners to help develop how we're doing this work together. So we have the Stedward Center presenting on becoming para-ready. We have Canucks Autism Network talking about autism and inclusion for neurodiversity. And we have Special Olympics Canada presenting on their training programs. And so each of them will share a little bit about those programs, and then we'll have a panel conversation to dig into sort of how are we going to move this work forward? Where are some of those gaps that we're navigating? Where are some of those opportunities to work together? One of the other things we do for our members is program grants, again, paying our funding forward. So we support our OneAbility members with kind of micro grant type style, usually about $500 each. And last year we went from 1 grant cycle a year to 3, and we're supporting about $10,000 a year in program grants out to our members. Shared services I mentioned earlier. So this is one of our board members. She also runs RAD, Recreation Adaptive, which provides rental equipment, different adapted equipment that you can take out and use throughout the community and in other places in BC. And Tanel's accessed our bookkeeping service, which has really been supportive for her to just kind of organize how she's running that charity and how she's moving that work forward. And then Paraplay, which I referenced earlier, which has been supported by Jumpstart. We've hosted 6 sessions over the last year and a half of Paraplay with 2 different age groups, ages 9 to 15 and 16 to 25. Partnered with a number of our members. I think we have about 8 members that have been involved in that program in different ways, and has served about, this says 20 youth, it's actually up to 30 youth across our region. And what we've seen with that is that some of those youth who've gone through that program are now in regular programming through some of our member clubs, which is ultimately what the goal is, that introduction, ensure that they have a really positive experience and then they have somewhere to play. So we're all better together. That's why we exist. And we've been so grateful for the community support, the opportunity to connect and to support our disability community in Victoria and beyond. And just as a last piece, I just want to also recognize so many people that are in this room, because one of the things we learned out of One Ability was that we can do more when we work together, better together. And so we've also started a national Parasport collective, and the invitation's out there for anyone who's interested in joining and being part of that work. James and I co-chair that little group, and got some big plans.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you everyone for that. We're at our lunch break right now, so we don't have time for questions, but I think the key thing is the whole point of being here together is that if you heard anything that Taryn, James, or Andrea said, sit with them at lunch, talk to them about it. I think the one piece for me that always resonates around this is, as Andrea said, is the power of working together. I think the other powerful thing for me when I bring it down to the experience of that parent or the athlete is they just go to the name they know or hear. They have no idea the inner workings that we do. We live in the muck and we understand the background and we get stuck in the silos, but the parents are just looking for a place for their child. And the danger is not that Special Olympics doesn't offer a program for their specific child. The danger is if they go to a program and they just say, no, we don't service you. Because then there is a great chance that that family's just like, oh, okay, there's nothing for my child. But the power of being connected and knowing is that, oh, we don't offer that, but we have a great organization in our community that does. Let me connect you with them. Like that's the power of the collective, and that's the strength. And then the other amazing things come out of that, like James and Taryn and Andrew were talking about, of the unexpected programs that are developed. So that's the power. We hope you got some perspective from our 3 awesome presenters, and we hope that inspires you, that if you're in a community that doesn't have a group that brings together, starts with one meeting, starts with one email. Be like, hey, do you want to come? So thank you very much.